Sancho Mbuemo wants to go to Manchester United. Now explain something to me. They've had a dreadful season. They appear to be in disarray off the pitch with cuts and whatever. What's the appeal of Manchester United?
I think we've seen over the last 24 hours, Bruno Fernandez could have gone and got £750,000 rumoured per week. He's decided to stay on what he's on at Manchester United. He's turned down the big money. Matheus Cunha had loads of options in the Premier League and across Europe because of the release clause. He's decided to go to Manchester United. With all that recent history of that club not performing, they still have a huge pull for players, regardless of no European football. And I guess when you look at this man, Bruno Fernandez, has been absolutely outstanding since he joined Brentford in 2019, and he had options on the table from other clubs playing in the Champions League, and he again looks to have decided Manchester United is where my future lies. Now, I think that shows just the pull that the club has. To go into the detail of this particular deal, now, Brentford have the option of 1 year plus a further year on his contract. No release clause, but they believe the way he's performed since he arrived in 2019, 200 plus appearances, around 70 goals, he's earned the right to move on. He's earned the right to play for a big club. He's earned the right to prove himself at the high. Now, whilst they don't want to lose him, they accept he has given everything for Brentford whilst he's been there. So therefore, they are happy to listen to offers, those that they feel reflect the value of the player, which we understand to be. There's been no club-to-club talk at this stage, but there is a confidence that Bruno Fernandez wants to join Manchester United. And normally, when the player says the right noises publicly about, well, this is the right opportunity for me, it's only a matter of time before you get to the formality of the two clubs speaking. So that's the situation there. We know that this is one potentially to happen, but it's just a matter of time, and that would be a big part of what Manchester United are doing, that rebuild, and in particular having two number 10s, which is what Ruben Amorim wants. And you can imagine, Matheus Cunha, Bruno Fernandez, that could be very dangerous.
James, great signing if they get that over the line.
He's been remarkable this season. 20 Premier League goals he scored for a club like Brentford, and Wissa deserves immense credit as well. So does Thomas Frank for getting the very best at this player. I think there have been times that was the BMW, wasn't it, with Ben Rama and Watkins, but it felt this man didn't quite get the move. He didn't get the limelight. It was the other players that did, but he deserves that now. He's probably surpassed what the likes of Ivan Toney have done in a Brentford shirt. When you look at what they've achieved this season, what a statement it would be for Manchester United. They can bring in Matheus Cunha and Bruno Fernandez, two of the most impressive attacking players in the Premier League this season, to the club in June. There's still plenty of time to go in this transfer window, but for those two to be there through the door for the first day of pre-season, what a statement of intent that is, what a sign that is. We're back in Ruben Amorim here.
Right, we touched on Jadon Sancho just a moment ago, but I want to get into this because on the surface, Mark, it looks like Chelsea are going, here, 5 million quid, you can have him back. Explain why it's not that simple.
Yeah, Manchester United could have potentially a little problem on their hands with a number of players that they actually don't really want at the football club this summer, so therefore they need to shift him on. Their thinking would have been, right, he's gone to Chelsea, no problem there. The contractual situation was it was an obligation if Chelsea finished higher than 14th in the Premier League that they had to purchase Jadon Sancho for £25 million. They can get out of that by paying £5 million to Manchester United, which we believe is what they're going to do. Now, there was no loan fee attached to this contract, to this situation. So essentially what they're doing is paying a £5 million loan fee and sending him back. But there was no loan fee at the beginning of this. So it's an interesting one to look at, because on the surface you think, hang on a second. Now, there were conversations between Jadon Sancho's representatives and those people at Chelsea, but he has to fit in to their wage structure. Now, there are reports he's earning around £250,000 to £300,000 a week, which wouldn't fit into what Chelsea are doing. So therefore, go back to Manchester United. Unfortunately, we can't find some common ground with your wages, and therefore we'll pay the fine or the fee, the £5 million fee, and that's where we are with it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. This man, no question, played big games for Chelsea, started the Europa Conference League final, was a big part of that squad, ended up with some silverware, interest from Europe. I'm sure someone will come knocking.
Will they though, James? Because as you said, it's got a bit congested of the players that United don't want. Anthony, Rashford, Sancho. So what's next?
I think it's certainly a problem that Manchester United could have dealt with out this summer. I think when they bid farewell to him last summer, there was a real hope that this deal and this chapter would come to a close for Manchester United, because it simply hasn't worked out. United spending more than £70 million to bring Jadon Sancho to the football club. Think of all those matches that he missed when they were paying that immense salary for him not to be in the squad because of what happened under Erik ten Hag. He impressed at Borussia Dortmund on loan. He did well in spells at Chelsea. I think in a way it's worked for all parties because there is still a market value there for Jadon Sancho. United, they are expecting offers for him in this transfer window. It's understood a number of clubs in the Premier League and Europe have approached Jadon Sancho's representatives about what the conditions of the deal could look like. I think there is a preference from all parties, Jadon Sancho and Manchester United, for this chapter to officially come to a close this summer. But you can't rule out another loan deal potentially in this window. If clubs aren't going to be willing to match those wages, and let's be honest, over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, has Jadon Sancho merited the wages that he's expecting this window? That's a conversation to be had. It's worth pointing out here, there's no suggestion this would be the case, but Ruben Amorim hasn't had a chance to work this footballer yet because he left before he came in.
Good point.
I'm not suggesting he could be integrated, but there could be a situation where if they can't get rid of him, he's on those wages, then they have to get him involved in their plans because it is costing United a serious amount of money to have a player like that not doing anything if they can't get rid of him. Very early on this transfer window, we understand United are expecting offers, but definitely one to bear in mind.
All right, so what we do know is that Chelsea may have wanted him, but they've given him back. If they don't want Jadon Sancho, do they want Jamie Gittins?
And there's an interesting link there as well because he's at Borussia Dortmund.
And James Savundra and Mark McAdam are our transfer experts tonight. Let's start then with Bruno Fernandez, gentlemen. A lot of money for him not to go to Manchester United. James, what do you think?
A lot of money. He had the opportunity to potentially
not to leave Manchester
triple
United.
His salary, didn't he? The opportunity to potentially earn somewhere near £750,000 a week if reports are to be believed to join Al Hilal. But he's decided he wants to remain in the top competition in Europe, in the Premier League. That's where he wants to stay. And you can understand why. He's only 30 years of age. He turns 31 in September. The argument was, with the season that Manchester United had, would he want to stay there based on what they achieved, finishing 15th in the Premier League table, a disappointing performance in the Europa League final as well. But having had a conversation with his family, he's decided he wants to stay put. There were some really interesting quotes from last summer when he signed this new contract at Manchester United, which takes him out to 2027 with an option to extend until 2028. He said, "I wouldn't have signed this deal if I didn't believe my best moments in the United shirt are still to come. I can see how positive the future is going to be, and I'm relishing leading this team forward." Let's bear in mind what he's done in the United shirt this season. There is an argument, if Bruno Fernandes wasn't there, he wasn't fit this season, things could look even worse for Manchester United this year. The fans love him. 82% of fans voted him their player of the year this season. He was stunning at times for Manchester United. He couldn't quite get them that silverware to make this season a success. But it's a really encouraging statement for Ruben Amorim, for Ineos as well, that the captain wants to stay, that he believes in the project. Clearly, he believes United can get back to the level. I think there's an ego that Bruno Fernandes has. Players want to join United still because they have that ego believing that they can take this club back to where they were, where they're supposed to be. I think it's really encouraging that he's clearly feeling vindicated in that decision. He's feeling that United are doing the right things in this summer window. He's encouraged.
James, there's a but, and it's a big but, Mark, because £100 million could have gone a long way to rebuilding Manchester United. Do you think everyone at Old Trafford is delighted that Fernandes is staying?
I think ultimately this was a commercial decision and a footballing decision, and the footballing decision has won. But I think those in the commercial part of Manchester United would have said, like, this is a big deal here, this is a lot of money. The accountants would have been happy. That would have been a huge chunk towards rebuilding Manchester United over the course of this summer for someone who's in their 30s. But he's a leader, he's a captain, he's someone that's been so instrumental to Manchester United over the course of the last few years. And like James says, without him, where would they be? And I think if you were to ask honestly the hierarchy of Manchester United, what would you like in this situation? They'd probably be split, with some saying time to get rid because we're never going to recoup that type of money for a 30-plus-year-old. The others will be saying we need him as a part of our rebuild, because if we don't have someone like him on the pitch, how are we going to perform? We need these young players to learn from someone with his passion and experience. And I think that would have been very similar with the fan base as well. But ultimately, this has been about football. And Manchester United are now going to have to find other ways to regenerate this squad without £100 million in the back pocket from this man.
That was going to be my next point, James. Amorim says we're getting the money from elsewhere.
Players they have right now, players are returning from their loan spells. Anthony had a successful loan spell at Real Betis. Marcus Rashford impressed in spells at Aston Villa before his season ended early due to injury. Alejandro Garnacho, what's his future? There's reports elsewhere that Ruben Amorim's already told him to go and find a club this summer. There's plenty of money there potentially for United. Jadon Sancho could be another player they'll sell it in this window. I think they could have got potentially 80, 100 million pounds for a 30-year-old. They'd never have thought when he signed that contract last summer they'd get money for him. I think when they signed that contract for 4 years, there was acceptance that he probably wouldn't be any resale value at the end of that contract, that he would stay at this club for those 4 years. There are players they can sell, whether or not they can command fees of somewhere near 80 to 100 million pounds for any of those other players. I don't think they can. There's clearly things they can do around pure profit with academy graduates. I know that's not what Manchester United fans want to hear when you talk about players like Garnacho and Kobe Mainoo, but there are players there to be sold. But of course, if you sold Bruno Fernandez for 100 million pounds, then that gives you a huge amount of wiggle room to do even more in this transfer window. But saying that, he's going to stay put, and I think that is really encouraging for Manchester United and Ineos. It's been a dreadful season. I was speaking on this show a year ago, and there was so much encouragement about what Manchester United did last summer. They backed Eric Ten Hag. We saw what happened. Things went wrong there. I think the start of this transfer window for Matheus Cunha to commit his future to Manchester United, for Bruno Fernandes, the captain, to commit his future, that can only be a good thing. Important to note as well that United never actually had a decision to make because there wasn't a concrete bid that came in from Al Hilal. What they would have done, we wait to see. Well, we won't find out, but what they would have done, it would have been fascinating, because I think it would have been a dagger blow to lose the captain, I think.
Okay.
Just one quick word on that. So, obviously, Al Hilal playing in the Club World Cup, they wanted a big marquee signing. They thought it might be this man. It's not going to be this man, but they're going to get Simone Inzaghi, the man that just took Inter Milan to the Champions League final. So, plan B, a big hitter, but the head coach.
Yeah, much more on Inzaghi coming up after 5:30.